Hi there, I'm Rachita Sharma, your podcast host for today. I work as an AVP Client Strategy and Success at Neil Patel Digital India. Welcome to another insightful episode of Rebel Talks, a podcast powered by NP Digital India, where you will find the most influential leaders and change makers of the country talking about their journey and their insights and about the overall landscape. Today we have with us Mr. Ajay Dusane, the Chief Growth Officer of Samco Securities Limited. Ajay, delighted to have you on the show. Could you please give us a little, about a bit of a background about your journey so far with our audience here?
I'm happy to be here. And before we deep dive, I would like to kind of quickly introduce myself to the audience. I'm Ajay, and I've been in marketing and business building for last 22 years. I spent about 17 years building automobile brands, and for last 6 years, I've been actively working in banking and finance sector, where I bring my expertise in terms of scaling businesses and scaling the digital transformation for our organizations. I've been a curious guy, and hence I personally feel that digital is a strong area where curiosity gets the best of you.
Right.
So happy to be addressing the audience here.
Right. The digital transformation and the shift to remote work has sort of changed the way how the consumers are consuming the content, their behavioral, their patterns. So as a marketer, how have you pivoted to those notable changes and how have you applied those learning in your business?
Across my career, I've seen that digital has, there are two kinds of organizations. One is the digital laggards who are now kind of catching up, and one have been natively digital who are born digital, right? But I think the digital transformation has really taken a spike in India post-pandemic.
Right.
Because it was the need of the hour. And second, digital transformation was the only key to build businesses of success.
Right.
I think because of the pandemic, the remote working has taken the forefront. Today, I think digital transformation is not a choice, but it's the need. And organizations have to learn to adopt culturally to digital transformation, skill set acquisition for its talent pool. Correct. And also using multiple or omni-channel digital platforms to kind of get their brands or, products to the consumers. Remote working will be the key to growth in future, and I think it is imperative that everybody adopts to remote working.
Right. So you mentioned, about the pandemic, and we were just chatting about how you joined Angel One in 2019, and that I think the prime time when you were in Angel One, the pandemic hit. So what were your strategy? How did you pivot through the entire period of almost 2 years and develop successful strategies?
I joined Angel in 2018. I think the objective was clear when we joined, that we have to make it a digital first organization.
Right.
While the organization was traditionally into the broking business for last 25 years, but the transition from 2018 to today is what the journey is all about. And it didn't happen just because of the pandemic. We were consciously trying to get the organization to be digital since 2018. Correct. While the company has done a lot of initiatives which were digitally first in the past, I think, the way we implemented digital was our acquisition was 100% digital. Correct. 70 to 80% of the acquisition happened on mobile.
Right.
Obviously, when digital is there, there's so much of data that you have, right? How do you look at the data? How do you understand consumer behaviors? How do you understand consumer usage of your platforms? What are the key pain points? What are the dropouts? What are the churns? I think this data orientation was there right from the beginning. And we were kind of sort of ready for the digital wave. The pandemic took, when it hit us, it didn't take us to a lot of surprise. But I think the biggest change that happened was culturally, where the key stakeholders of the organizations were confident on the people that digital is the way forward and remote is not an issue. In fact, after the pandemic also, the company continues to work remotely, right? They have people who are working from the remotest part of the country. So I think all of this put together for a digital organization is what works together.
Now coming to your existing experience where you are leading the growth narrative for Samco Securities. When it comes to trading, we are talking about Gen X and millennials. So how do you find a correct balance of maintaining the digital first engagement between these two generations?
See, I think one of the major thing that has to be considered is, the pandemic has done few things largely to the whole ecosystem, right? Today, the lifestyle or the usage pattern of digital ecosystems of consumers has changed completely. They want convenience at their fingertips. They want to do it themselves.
Right.
Correct. They want to learn on their own. Correct. And they also want something to work with brands which are trustworthy. Right. What this has done to the whole digital ecosystem is the way the organizations operate. Right. Today, even without the pandemic, people are wanting convenience. People are wanting smart solutions. People want to do it on their own. They want educational support. So all of this has to, marketing is not easy today because you have to toggle through all of these challenges.
Right.
It may vary from organization to organization, but largely what we've seen, what I've seen after coming here is this change is consistent. Correct. Whether it's a expert trader or a new people coming into the category as a fresher or a new entry, I think the challenge remains same across. Only the kind of educational content that you do might vary, but largely you need to have a solid app ecosystem.
Right.
You need to have tools that will help them to do things on their own. Correct. That has largely not changed. So I think digital gives you a lot of convenience, speed, and power to do it on your own. That has not changed, and I think that's where most of the players in this category will kind of inch towards.
Right. So, regarding so we're just talking about your recent campaigns, Traders Ka Andhe Ka Sach. So, I had a very, I was thinking about asking you this, that when you talk about marketing trading platforms, it's a very complex market, right? You go get lost in the jargon. What actually inspired you of creating this campaign, and any learning that you have so far received, the kind of response, since you also mentioned that it was a 7-minute video that you released and you took a risk in establishing sort of a brand positioning there, a new brand positioning for Samco Securities. So what were your thoughts back then and how it has been?
See, Rachita, I think we've spent about a year doing, putting this from idea to execution. Largely, you have to understand that the category is little complex, right?
Right.
There are a lot of players, and everybody is trying to get the consumer on their platform. Unfortunately, none of them majorly focus on what the consumer is doing after coming to their platforms. Correct? While the digital transformation, digital ecosystem platforms play a large part in how we do businesses today, it is but mandatory that you understand who's sitting behind each of the data points, right? And that's a human. He has his own feelings, he has his own aspiration, understanding, education. So how do you talk about this consumer? And largely we found that this space is missing. Point number one. Point number two, while you have so many people who are in the category, 1/3 of them are not active. Correct? And largely very few of them end up making profits. 90% of the people tend to lose money in the category, right? So how do you kind of handle these people? That's when a year back we launched our Samco trading app, where it's a personalized advanced analytics platform, which will give you a lot of trends and insights into your trading patterns, how you operate within the category, where you trade, how you trade. And that is where we said, okay, let's help the consumers. Correct? And hence the positioning was around Andhe Ka Sach, which is, hidden insights. And there are a lot of blind spots that every trader has. We wanted to bring this to the front of the consumers. And while we built the positioning, there was a campaign which came in. But I think we largely said, if our target audience are the traders, how do you make him, stand a little higher in the society. Because all said and done, the taboo that he faces in the society today is still persistent. Correct. We personally feel that trading is a very scientific game. Correct. A lot of education or experience is required there. It's not to be treated like gambling. And we wanted to bring this upfront to the fray. And we've received a lot of accolades in our episode 1. Episode 2 just recently got
Yeah.
released, and similar kind of this thing we are getting. I think the narrative that uh, because of all the digital ecosystem, I think how do you build trust? It is not by offering services. It is about having a narrative which is truthful in its own sense. I think that will play a lot of large part in building brands and build successful businesses in future.
As a brand custodian, how do you protect your brand from in terms of finding the right influencer strategy and dealing with those independent influencers who are ready to give you the best feedback or the worst feedback?
See, I think a very interesting question. Correct. It's a two-way street, right? How do you attract influencers to work with you? That's the first question. I think a brand has to have a solid offering to the consumers. If they are addressing a right need gap or a value to the consumer, you'll have the right people coming to you. If you are very legit and if your business is legit, you will have the right kind of influencers that come to you. It'll take time for younger brands. Probably established brand will have a solid network about it. But you have to have a system where you monitor each and every piece of content that goes out, right? Because eventually your end user is going to listen to that content. Correct. So a platform which helps you navigate these challenges is what is a must. Correct. It's a digital ecosystem. Are you able to measure the content, the quality of the content, or where it is sitting? I think that plays a larger role, and you will see a lot of organizations working towards building such kind of platforms. It's not where it also depends on the objective of the brand. Do they want to be a mass brand? Do they want to be a specific brand? And that helps build content around this. So while a lot of brands will be still struggling, but I think the straight focus that each brand should have is whom am I working with and why am I working, correct? And what is my end consumer going to get? I think these pieces, once you know your objective very, very sharply, then it's a pretty clear road.
Now, talking about the Gen Zs and the late millennials, what different are you doing when communicating with them? What platforms are you prioritizing while bringing in a full funnel strategy to bring them in the market?
Rachita, I think first thing that obviously we all kind of agree that the Gen Zs are born native, right? Correct. They would not know about a landline phone, but they would be easily adopted to a smart mobile phone.
Right.
Correct. Obviously, what it tells us is your strategy should be mobile first. And I've seen across multiple businesses that almost 70 to 75% of the acquisition is through mobile. Right. So they will be on mobile devices and hence ready to experiment, ready to churn out as well if they don't like what they are looking for. So you have to be very, very sharp. For marketeers, I think the biggest challenge is what do you communicate, how briefly and how specifically you communicate to them, how personalized it is for them, correct? And what is the moment at which you are communicating. I think all of this is what is critical for marketeers per se. But this is where the ecosystem is moving, right? Gen Z would not shy away from telling you that you are a good brand or a bad brand, or the experience is wow or experience is pathetic, correct? And that's clearly visible from the amount of time they spend either on your app or your any other platforms, right? So I think a lot of brands, marketeers, and even digital marketeers should be aware of this. And the entire strategy should be focused around building a very coherent ecosystem out there.
I'll just wrap up the conversation. The last question: how would you define a modern day investor?
Modern day investor, while you should look at certain numbers in the category today, see, stock market penetration is just about below 4%, correct? Only 4% of people in India invest in stock market. Mutual fund will be thereabouts about 6-7% if I'm not wrong, correct? But largely the number of active investors has not changed. While people have come into the category, the number of investors haven't changed. I think there's a huge amount of need to educate the audience, correct, in the right sense. A modern investor probably has a lot of tools today. He has a lot of education available at his fingertips. He has a lot of DIY platforms. There's a lot of integration. The UPI helps do swift payments, or open accounts, or latch onto any other platform. While the ecosystem is changing, the consumer tend to be confused today, correct? Because there are a lot of brands telling him to probably open account or trying to attract him. So he's confused in a sense, and in the whole piece, he probably takes the wrong decision, or he doesn't spend too much of time understanding the platform or the category, whether it's mutual fund or stock market. So those decision making process has to be really smoother for him, correct? And when you have so much of chaos in the category, you're trying to wow the customer. Obviously, the consumer is going to be confused. But the good part, I think, on the brighter side is consumers are aware, correct? They would want to trust a brand. They will look at trust markers. They will look at how the brand is operating socially. They will look at the platforms. They will look at the transparency in which the brands operate, and that will play a larger role for the companies to kind of get the consumers to the platform. So this is the story of a modern day platform. But yes, he is very tech savvy. He knows where to find what information. He knows where to do what. Correct. He is well equipped today with the kind of content, educational content that's available. He can easily compare between multiple brands, multiple offerings, and do his own choice. Correct. But largely, I think if you build trust, if you're a long-term player, you have to focus on the value that you're giving to the consumer. It's not about shoving your product or services to the consumer. So that's largely the play, I think.
Great. Thank you so much, Ajay. I think we learned a lot of key insights, I think, in terms of how the brand are perceiving to be, how the consumers are evolving. And I'm sure our listeners will have lots of interesting insights and learning to take them ahead. Thank you so much for your time today.
Rachita, thank you. It was a pleasure to be here on the show, and I wish all the audience a great success. Thank you so much.
Thank you.